Hey everybody, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about water, water storage, availability to water, and things like that. You'll see here these two, I believe they're 55-gallon rain barrels, and then this smaller water container. Basically, this is like a camping water container that we have here. The camping water containers we fill up from the rain barrels, and we use these to actually haul water back and forth to our sheep. Our sheep just drink out of buckets of water, so using one of these, it actually has a lid, is a lot easier to walk around with than obviously buckets that are completely open. We have these two right here, and then we have another rain barrel in the back of my husband's truck just on the other side of this camera. And the reason I'm wanting to talk about this is because it's been a really dry summer. From what I understand, fairly typical summer in Oklahoma. When we moved here, it was springtime, which is, as some people joke around, mud season. So very, very wet. Unfortunately, when we moved here, we didn't have the ability, or at the time, really the time, because of other projects that had to get done, to get the rain catchment infrastructure put in that we really needed to be able to collect all the rain that we got. I mean, there were some days we got 5-6 inches of rain in just a few hours. So now in the summertime, we're looking at all our creeks have dried up. Every pond except one, our big pond that's, again, on the other side of this camera, has all dried up. Even the ponds that were in the creek that was across the front of the property are almost dried up now as well. So it's one of those things where we're at a very dry point in the year, and in September it is supposed to start, I guess the rains come back. And so we will be starting to get a lot more rain, and we're going to be obviously getting our rain catchment. We've already been working on getting our rain catchment set up more, a little bit better than what we had before. But I want to talk to you about this because these barrels right here, in all honesty, we go through about 3 a day. About, let's say 2.25, maybe 2.5-ish. So we average about 110 gallons a day of water that we use. And that is between doing the water for the sheep, the gardens. We have my husband's tree propagation nursery back here. We have our vegetable garden. We have showers that we take. We wash dishes. And we use a lot of paper plates and stuff, but we still have like cups and silverware and everything else. Brushing our teeth. And now, mind you, we don't use the water for the toilet at all because we do composting toilets. So there's no water usage whatsoever for toilets. So that's a big water saver right there. But we still go through about 110 gallons a day of water. So, and that's us being incredibly mindful of how we're using our water. And that also does help fill up the tank underneath the trailer because we do wash our dishes inside. So we fill it up underneath. We fill up that tank, and that tank's about 100 gallons, but we don't have to fill that up every day. That's every few days kind of thing. But I wanted to share this with y'all because I wanted you to think about how much water do you use on a regular basis, or how much water do you think you use? Honestly, you probably use a lot more water than you realize. I mean, if we use, and we're living incredibly minimally, if we use 110 gallons basically a day, how much do you think you use with your toilets and your dishwasher and your washing machines? Oh, and I also got to add that in. We do our laundry, our laundromat, so we don't even use water for our laundry here. So, and dishwashers use a ton of water. But if you think about all the things you do regularly for water, even drinking water, we have a Berkey set up, so we obviously, we don't have like bottled water really too much on hand. It's more water we just put through the Berkey. But if we're going through about 110 gallons a day, what are you using? And with that being said, what's your access like to water? So in our situation, we're living off grid. We do get our water from a campsite down the road, and got a pretty good relationship with a guy actually who manages the campsite. My husband goes probably just about every day, maybe every other day, depending on the shower situation. But so they've gotten to know my husband and his truck, and they know what he's doing. They don't care. But my thing here is okay, so you live, like say we lived in Florida. We've that's where we came from. We came from Florida, and a hurricane comes through and knocks out our power. Now, if you're on well water and you have a generator, and ironically enough, a lot of Floridians don't have generators, but if you're on well and you have a generator, and it's a good enough generator, you could probably run your well off, or run your well off your generator, there we go, and be able to get some water and stuff like that occasionally. But if you are on city water, and their power goes out, you don't have any water. You don't have the ability to even if you have a generator, you can run your electricity, but you're not going to get any water. It's because it's hooked up to the city water, and they don't have the ability to pump things. So whether you live in Florida and you have to deal with hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff like that, or you're in Oklahoma where there's tornadoes, or you're in any other state, I mean, just about every state gets tornadoes, and a lot of states on the coastline get affected by hurricanes. And then obviously further up north, you have snowstorms and everything else. So if you are in a situation where you do not have access to power and you don't have a generator, even if you do have a well, what's your water situation like? How are you going to drink water? What are you going to be able to do to be able to get water? Do you have a campsite nearby like we happen to have that has water available to you? And even then, if the campsite loses power, they won't have water. So that's something that we have talked about and we've kind of discussed and everything like that. We do have a hookup for water at the end of our road, or at the end of our property, front of our property, but we just haven't hooked it up to where we can actually get the water out yet. But it's one of those things where you have to think about in the situation of whether you're losing power because of natural disaster or you're losing power because of political things going on or whatever, or even if it's just a really hot or really hot summer, really cold winter, and there's rolling blackouts because of everybody using power. How are you going to get water? I mean, to be completely honest, like, you can't go very long, obviously, without water, and it's one of those things where you can get really thirsty really fast, especially in the summertime. And it's pretty miserable to be super thirsty in the summertime. Or pretty thirsty anytime. So if you don't have the ability to do rain catchment, to do water collection or anything like that, or if you're just in a dry season right now, where we have rain catchment permanently set up right now, and we get a little bit of water here and there. I mean, I was really excited the other day when for 2 days it rained, so I didn't have to water my garden, and then we had rain catchment set up, so I had a pretty good amount of water that I've been able to use to water my garden from that now, so I haven't been having to use these things. But what's it going to be like if you go through a drought and you don't have the ability to even get water from your property? When our creeks start flowing again, and we start getting water through that process, my husband and I have talked about getting like 1,000-gallon cisterns and using the creek water and having a filtration system set up and literally just having a bunch of cisterns here on the property to have filled up with water. Because we know now we go through about 110 gallons of water a day on a very minimal lifestyle. And so that's something you have to think about. Even if you're in the city, there's ways. When my husband and I lived in the downtown area where we moved from, we had our water spouts for our house. They didn't pour out onto the ground. They poured out into a rain barrel and an IBC. Like, it was in our back of our property, either side of the house coming down. There was an IBC on one side with 275 gallons, and there was a 55-gallon rain barrel on the other side. And we used that water to do like gardens and aquaponics and everything else like that. So it's one of those things where you have to understand that even if you're in a city type situation, even if you're in a very small, we only lived on 1/3 of an acre, so it wasn't even like we had tons of property or anything like that, that there's still things you can do to save water. And obviously, I mean, you can buy tons and tons of bottled water, but there's only so much space you have too. So especially if you're in a city type situation, I mean, we had a garage that we could have stacked tons of water bottles in or things like that, which we did have a fair amount because of like hurricane season and stuff. And we were on city water, so we knew even with a generator, we couldn't get water out of the ground if we wanted to. But that's also why we had larger water collection too. But you need to think about that. With everything going on, quite honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if things happened to where not everybody had water all the time. But it's just something you really need to think about, because when your family is really thirsty, and I've had kids come in, I mean, you have kids that come in anyways, Mom, I'm so thirsty, I've been outside for 2 minutes and I have to have water, you know, like, kids can be dramatic anyways when they're semi-thirsty, you know, but can you imagine your children really truly being thirsty and you not having water for them because the power's out due to natural, let's just say natural disaster, let's just go that route, due to natural disaster or something like that. And there's a lot of times in Florida, you know, there's a huge run on the stores when a hurricane's coming because people don't prepare ahead of time, which I never understood that living in Florida, how people can't be prepared ahead of time for a storm. But if there's some kind of natural disaster going on or a big storm coming and everything like that, and everybody's running on the store buying 18,000 cases of water, and you're one of them, how much water are you going to actually be able to get? I mean, we saw just with everything going on with COVID that people were buying toilet paper like crazy, you know, by the truck full basically, and stocking up their garages full of it. Why? I don't know. But it's one of those things that the same thing can happen with water. And you need to be mindful of that. You need to create a system wherever you live, whether it's stacking water bottles or whether it is doing some kind of rain collection as best as you possibly can. Even if you get these little camp things, like you need to, camping water containers, you know, they're 5-6 gallons kind of thing. Start stacking those things up. Start getting water in them. Start preparing for the fact that, you know, especially if you have a garden, if you're going through a dry season, you know, a different way to collect water and things like that. So it's one of those things where you need to be mindful of your water. You need to be mindful of how much water you use. And you need to think about, like, okay, what do I use my water on? What's important to use my water on? You know, is it more important to wash my dishes, or is it more important to have drinking water? And just kind of keep all those things in mind, guys, because nothing is guaranteed. Like I said, I mean, even with just natural disasters, you can lose your water for a day or two, or ability to get water for a day or two. In Florida, the longest I ever went was, I think, 5 days without power. And then we got it back, but we were staying at a house that had a well. So guess what? We were running a generator and the well was running. So we had water. But if you're not in that kind of situation, you're going 5 or 6 days without the ability to get water, what are you going to do? So just something to think about, guys. Start thinking about your water storage. Start thinking about how you're going to collect water as well. No matter where you live, whether you live in a city type situation. I mean, even if you're living in an apartment, you know, you might have a balcony, there's something you can set up there too to collect water and everything else. So just think about it, guys. There's different options, different kind of alternatives and things like that. And just be mindful of your water, guys, because I can tell you it is a very, like, I am hyper sensitive to how important water is living this kind of lifestyle. So you need to understand that water is an absolute necessity, and the way we typically get water is an absolute luxury. So you need to be prepared for the fact that that luxury of it just coming beautifully out of your ground and you don't have to do anything may not always be the case. So you need to be mindful of how you're going to get water when you can't just pump it out of the ground yourself. So, all right, guys, just something to think about. Hope you have a great day. Bye.